Welcome to the TELUS Originals DocTalks, a series of talks dedicated to craft, themes, and ideas behind TELUS Originals documentaries with the people behind and in front of the camera. I'm your host, Sabrina Rani Furminger, and for this episode, we'll be talking to Jeff Lee Petry about Out There. Out There is a series of 5 short documentary portraits about 5 remarkable young people growing up in small towns in the age of connectivity. Youth like Alexa from Sucker Creek First Nation, who is helping youth talk openly about trauma and hardship through her Digital Voices project. And Miriam from Fort Mac, who entered and won a global science competition. And Nell from Cranbrook, who parlays her passion for songwriting into a gig with the Flaming Lips by the time she's in early high school. And Grace from Prince George, a musical triple threat who has won dozens of awards for playing piano concertos and performing in speech arts competitions, and whose next greatest challenge is trying to figure out how to do life. And Renee from Red Deer, who is forced to navigate intense grief while on the cusp of adult life, and does so by building community and helping others do the same. Although the individual experiences differ, these young people are connected by their courage, creativity, and the community they built for themselves within and from their small towns. In this episode of TELUS Originals DocTalks, we'll speak with Out There producer Jeff Lee Petry, who, with Nathan Drillo, is one of the producers for the Out There series. Jeff is a co-founder of Salazar Film, a commercial and documentary production company based in Vancouver, BC. He has co-directed, written, and produced under the name Salazar since 2010, and projects include The Rustlers, Wizard Mode, and Handsome and Majestic. Today, we'll speak with Jeff Lee Petry about his journey with Out There and the kind of projects that draw and hold his interest. Jeff Lee Petry, welcome to TELUS Originals DocTalks.
Hi, Sabrina. Thanks for having me.
So happy to speak with you today about all of these remarkable young people and these remarkable films. Before we get into the specifics for the films, how did this series come to be? Give me its origin story.
Yeah, well, the series was written by by myself and my producing and directing partner, Nathan Drillo. And I think it really kind of came out of a wish to sort of reinvestigate what it means to grow up in a small town in Canada. I think that, like, I myself grew up in a very small village in Manitoba of 1,800 people. And I know that, visiting the city was like a very, a monumentous thing where you could like absorb all this culture and take that back to the small town, and it would proliferate and become something else there. And now that's sort of that's a lot different with the internet. So we kind of wanted to explore what youth today in small towns were encountering, because they still get the benefit of the small town and that slower moving lifestyle, but then also having this, direct access to culture outside.
So you actually started with a hypothesis then, that was like technology has changed the experience of growing up young in a small town. Is that correct?
Yeah, I would believe so. I mean, I can't speak from direct experience, but this is kind of what we wanted to explore, basically.
Okay, so then the results then are these 5 individual films, which honestly, each one on their own is so strong and definitely is the kind of film that, I will personally carry with me, as I think about what it actually means to be, a young person growing up in a small town in Canada, but taken as a whole, it's quite an astounding experience. How did you find the directors? How did you find these stories? Like, bring us a little bit a peek behind the curtain of that.
Yeah, well, we brought the idea to Ken Sui, the executive producer at TELUS, and he was really, really supportive of the idea. So then we went out and tried to find these stories. And we kind of like sifted through local media and these sorts of things, like hunting for stories of kids who had done sort of bigger, significant things. We had Nathan's partner, Katrin, runs a very successful casting agency. We're a street casting agency. So we employed her to kind of have a look around. It's mostly just kind of finding a way into the community, and then you start to ask around and see who's doing what and get a sense of certain names will kind of keep coming up again and again. And then you're like, maybe this is the person. Sorry, I've lost track.
No, that's fine. I mean, honestly, what happens during these conversations is I ask a question, then we go off a new route. But one thing that you said that was interesting to me is that you were looking for, remarkable, names or names that kept coming up. What were some of those like kind of boxes that you felt you needed to tick? Like, was there a specific age range or a specific kind of, way of, just being excellent as a young person? Like, what were you looking for? What criteria?
I mean, we tried to keep it pretty open. Just wanting the series to have like a greater shape to it, and like you said, the films each have a very distinct feel to them, but they're very cohesive and as well. And they together, I think they form a greater portrait of what it's like to grow up in these small towns now. So I think at first we were looking from like 16 to 20 kind of area. Just old enough to have kind of been able to had a chance to really achieve stuff. But when we started looking around, we were finding people of great age ranges that were doing amazing things.
Yeah, and what about the directors? Like, how did you find the directors? Were the directors, where were they from, and did they have connections to small town life in Canada? Like, what did that process look like?
Yeah, I mean, we looked around. It was kind of the same process as we started, organically. Nathan and I have been in the industry here since 15 years. So we have a pretty good community of people, and we have a pretty good sense of who's, doing what and coming up with what. And we asked around a lot of friends who work at film festivals and, TELUS folks who they thought was doing great things. And we wanted to kind of get directors that had done a few projects, had a few things under their belt, but maybe, hadn't really had a chance to make like a 15-minute film or a documentary for that matter. And so, we tried to bring in people who we thought could bring a certain spirit to it and who could connect with the subjects that we had found, because we found the subjects first, and then we sort of tried to find the directors and then fit them together.
Right. Okay. And they didn't necessarily need to have a connection. Like, the directors did not need to have a connection to small town life then in Canada.
Yeah. I mean, we liked that when it happened, but it didn't necessarily have to happen. There could be other connections. We didn't want to make any sort of like one-to-one connections. We wanted to like find, we know this director likes to do stuff about sports. Like, Aya liked to do things about sports. So Renee does a lot of sports. So let's put them together and see what happens. And, it was a lot of that sort of jostling them around, or like puzzle pieces, and going, who would do what? And what do you think would come out of that? And it was a fun creative process.
Okay, well then let's talk a little bit more about the process then, because you are a producer on this, but you've directed quite a few projects as well. So what did your working relationships with the individual directors look like? Either, during filming or post-production for each of the films?
Yeah, I mean, Nathan and I really tried to create a container that everybody could, swim around inside and make what they wanted to make. Because a lot of the filmmakers were maybe not as experienced as we were. We wanted to be mindful for it not to take on like kind of an explicit mentorship. But we wanted to also support them, because the reality of creating these short documentaries is they have like kind of a very short amount of time to actually shoot with the subjects. So we had to, think ahead and plan ahead, and like much of the interview process had happened via the internet. We sent sound equipment ahead so that the subjects could have great sound when they were doing these interviews. So a lot of that script and everything was laid out before we left and went to the small communities. So then when it came time to actually film, we knew what we were kind of doing, and we had enough time and space that if something new came about, that we could explore that. And something great could, we could also be creative in the moment. We didn't have to stick to the script.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And oh, sorry, continue.
No, please.
Well, I was going to ask, these, and I say kids, I mean, they're in some cases young adults, but I'm at 40, so it's like kids these days. But these kids, what kind of work did you have to do, in general terms or specific terms, to get them comfortable, with the camera and in front of the camera? Because, there are some cases where they're talking about, profound trauma or, like really big issues, like murdered and missing Indigenous women and mental health challenges and grief. Like, so what did you or the filmmaker, have to do to help them relax and feel that they could be vulnerable with the camera there?
Yeah, I think that's something that Nathan and I have a lot of experience within our own documentary careers. And the two of us combined are very different people, and we always joke that we kind of have this effect where people get really comfortable with us very easily. And so we tried to bring that into the project by one, making good pairings between the directors and the subjects. Nathan and I spoke to the subjects a few times before even bringing the directors in. There was a certain comfort level with us as producers that and these are youth, so we're also talking with the parents, and so we're creating like a sense of confidence that and cohesiveness of what we're trying to achieve, so that people can feel free to open up in the ways they want. But a lot of this also had to do with how great the directors did. I mean, when we got there, and like I said, creating enough space, creating a container that has enough space for like, okay, if we don't know what to do, we know what to do. And when we find something that we didn't think about beforehand, and it seems like something we should explore, that we have the time to just explore that, but like hang out and explore that, not be like, we got to get it, like, which is not a good space for kind of exploring some harder things.
Especially for kids these days, they like to hang out and talk. It's not on this timetable. You mentioned that it was a short amount of time to film with. What like how long were you in each of these communities then?
I mean, in total, our production time I think was averaged about 5 days, but that was with travel in, travel out. So we had 3 full days and then 2 half days of racing around getting footage before we jump on the plane back. But, so yeah, it wasn't a lot of time. But again, the weeks leading up to that, the subjects and directors would meet online. They would do like 2-hour talks, and that would all be recorded and then transcripted, and then
Amazing. So what, like, you had the concept then for what the series of films would look like, and then I know that you had conversations, and then there was storyboarding, and then I also know though that there is magic that happens just in the in the process of being on location and filming. So how did the final films match or exceed or were different from your original expectation of what you thought that they would be? How were they the same or different?
I think that, what we had envisioned in the beginning translated pretty well out to the end. I mean, everybody did such a great job of really exploring, like I said, going in with a certain idea, which is what documentary is. It's like sculpting. You kind of have to start with something, some sort of preconception of what it's going to look like, where we're going to be, where we're going to do that interview or something. And then the whole process kind of like taking your expectations out of it and hopefully leaving what is, some essence of truth or, some greater truth that we've discovered. So I feel like we got really close to what we wanted to do, which is creative portraits of people without sort of falling into the profile doc, and keeping it very creative and poetic.
Yeah, which is just like kids these days, frankly. And I say this as the parent of a teenager, and people who are like, oh, their kids these days are, they lack empathy or they're narcissistic. I find the young people, God, I sound like I'm 100 years old when I say that, but just to be so compassionate and creative and so much more, aware and connected with a lot of big challenges as well, and that was, that was the message really that I got from these five films, is that like, wow, these kids are dealing with a lot, but the kids are all right. What are some of the lessons that you would like audiences to take from, watching these films as a whole?
Yeah, I mean, what was something that was important to us in the beginning of this was that these films would get in front of young audiences. And because I think we as as a middle-aged man, I think we can fall very easily into like judging kids by the way they act. I don't know how we fall into this because we rolled our eyes when our parents did it to us.
Totally.
Yeah, so I don't know how we fall so easily, but we wanted these to go in front of younger audiences because we wanted younger folks in small towns to be able to see people just like them, that were going through the same things, because kids have a different set of challenges every generation. It's just the way of it. Kids now arguably have even greater things to overcome just because of the sheer access that they have to the rest of the world. But yeah, to have other youth in smaller centers be able to see the type of creativity that a lot of these subjects are engaging in is just really inspiring. It's inspiring to everyone, but It's also, having grown up in a small town myself, I know that you kind of see your path very early until someone maybe comes in and goes, hey, but you could also do this. And you're like, oh, wow, I don't, your world kind of opens up in certain ways. And now obviously with the kids being so connected, they have access to this kind of dreaming sort of immediately.
It's like small towns aren't really small anymore, right? Small towns are still small, but the big world is also small as well. Like it's more within reach.
There's this real, I mean, the relationship between the rural and the urban has always been really interesting to me personally. Mm-hmm. And I think that it's really interesting to see, like, you open your front door and, me growing up in a small town, I knew 1,800 people, mm-hmm. But now I live in the city. I don't really know 1,800 people. So it's like so you open the door, life is kind of a little bit slower, but then you have this connection to the world. Like, it's a very interesting dichotomy that they have to play with or navigate.
Yeah. When you think about the experience of producing out there, what are some of the memorable moments that come to mind?
Yeah, I mean, we took for this project, we had basically the same cinematographers. Kayla Wakell shot most of them. Then she spelled off to direct Nisikis on Lex, and Diana Perry, her first AC, became the cinematographer, which was great. And we love so much working with them, and yeah, just traveling, being salty road dogs with them is really, really fun. I think that the most rewarding part of this is just to be able to like kind of use our experience collectively together to give these filmmakers a great container to swim in and to be able to support them and to make sure that they're getting everything they need, but also being as creative as they want to be. Yeah. I mean, all of them have super memorable moments. I mean, Miriam is just so smart, and her family was so amazing, and she was just it was wild to be with her, just on the cusp of leaving for Stanford, and just realizing that next time I meet you, Miriam, you will not be the same person. You will just be so changed and so different. And Renee was the same thing. Renee had just experienced the death of his father and his grandfather, and he was extremely he was in that place, and you could just see that experience, that wisdom gaining that we do at that age, really happening real time. So it was quite incredible. Alexa, just super badass, powerful, does public speaking. I'm nervous having this conversation with you, but she would just stand up in front of hundreds of people and share really, really important things. And Grace is just such a trip. She's such a performer.
So talented, yeah.
So talented, such a performer. So fun to be around. Her family was just so incredible to spend time with, and yeah, you could see her that performance brain forming and really figuring out what she wants to do next.
Yeah. And then Nell
is wild.
Can we just tell viewers a little bit, because obviously they're gonna hop right off and go and watch all these films, but Nell's in particular was I did not know anything about Nell before this, and so Nell is a young teenager. Could you tell our viewers and listeners about who Nell is and who Nell hooks up with, collaborates with, while still a young teenager? It just blew my mind.
Yeah, totally. It's one of those beautiful lightning strikes that you just want to, that you're just so happy it happens.
Yeah.
It actually happens. Yeah, Nell is, at the time, was a very young teenager, and her dad was taking her to shows. They're a very musical family.
Yeah.
And took her to a Flaming Lips concert, and she would wear this parrot costume, and she kept coming as a parrot costume. And then eventually the band started to notice and brought them backstage and said hi, and then got to know her music. And then they started to collaborate, and they released an album together of Nick Cave cover songs. The whole thing is just wild. It's so cool. And then she's from the Cranbrook Fernie area, and it's which is a really creative small community. There's so much going on there, and so much great music happening.
It doesn't sound like a real story, though. There's a part of it that it's like you. If I were to watch this in a fictional film, I'm this is not believable at all. But it's just fantastic, and the message, as well. That especially for, I mean, I have a 13-year-old. There's this. A lot of kids have that idea of I just want to fit in. I'm just I don't want to stand out. And this is wear a parrot costume and pursue what you love, and cool things will happen. The message for that one just blew my mind there.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah. Every one of these characters kind of has that same spirit about them, which is they're just really doing what, they're really, they've really figured it out, I think, at an early stage or are figuring it out.
Yeah.
Yeah,
and then having a positive impact on the people around them as well. Like we see Alexia, like looking at all of, her friends and being like, this person is like, does this, and this person has this impact on people. And I'm like, wow, I don't even like as a 40 something to be able to look at my friends and say immediately what quality they have that is so special. Like it's just it's a wonderful experience to watch these films. This is a question I love, even though not all the filmmakers love it, but can we talk about challenges? Because I know, with everything that you're directing, that you're producing, there are challenges. You've experienced challenges. So what particular challenges did you face producing this, and how did you overcome them? Because I know you overcame them because these films are incredible.
Yeah. The challenges. The challenges were distance and time. The distance from our subjects, not being able to like access them, in person every day, doing it from remotely and from afar always poses its challenges, but we found ways around that. And time is always a factor in film, especially in documentary, because you want to just spend time. It takes a long time to really become invisible in the room, if that's possible. It's not really possible, but so the distance, like I said, we sent sound equipment ahead of time, and tried to create as much time with the subjects as possible. Like every week we have to meet, talk, do interviews for 2 hours. The director and subject should do that on their own so that they're kind of gaining that confidence together, or they're getting enough time to get bored with each other and maybe go like, do you ever think about doing this? Because the subjects were as involved in the writing process as the directors were, or as we were.
Yeah.
It was just really important to us that they had enough time to kind of, like I said, get bored and I mean, I don't know if that's true, but they had enough time to be able to get comfortable enough to start batting ideas around at each other and being like, I think we should do this, or where do you think we could do this, or where do you envision this doing? Because we wanted these to be poetic and not just, one-to-one.
Yeah. So is there a sense of then that like the young people and the directors, like they became collaborators? Or is that just part of documentary filmmaking, anyways, that there is kind of a active, collaboration, consensual collaboration going on?
Yeah. And that can take on many, many different forms. Yeah. Sometimes it's not as collaborative. I mean, we always hope that these things are consensual and well thought out, but it can take on many different forms. But in this case, I think with all of them, it was apparent that it needed to be like, okay, we're gonna come, we're gonna do this together. Yeah. We have ideas. What are your ideas? How do you feel about this? Where do you think we could do this? Because there's also like the communities in which everybody lives are a character in and of itself. So they and we as outsiders are popping in. So luckily we have this kind of like local knowledge that we're able to like immediately access. And so, we could find these, well, where do you like to go? Or where do you like to spend time? And so there's a lot of we asked a lot of the subjects about where they live and where we could go and how could it best pull things off.
Yeah,
and beautiful things would happen, like a carnival, like
literally a carnival.
In Miriam's story, there's the carnival, and we drove past it on our way in, and we're like, oh, I know we said we were going to start filming tomorrow morning, but the carnival's last night's tonight, so let's go. And then it becomes a huge part of the film.
Oh, fantastic. How would you describe your style as a producer? And is your producing style different from your directing style? How is it at all?
I think they're pretty much the same. I mean, I'm not the most emotive guy in the world, so
I think you're fine. I'm feeling the emotions here.
Yeah. So my style is to hopefully, like I've always viewed this process as, like I said, alluded to before, as kind of like sculpture, in the sense that you're going in with like an idea, knowing that you're going to have to like shave that away and take pieces away just to like for it to be able to find itself. So I generally try to just create containers. Both Nathan and I would do this, to kind of create a container and then just kind of like sift into the background a little bit.
Yeah.
Let everybody kind of do what they needed to do, support that in any way possible. But then, stepping in if you could see things were getting hung up, or if we were missing something, sometimes as a director, you get sort of focused on something and you end up spending like too much time on it. And you're like, wait. So in some capacity, you have to act like a little bit of an assistant director and be like, okay, we got to go. It's time.
Yeah.
But yeah, generally speaking, just trying to create like put all the right pieces in line, and then step back and kind of see what everybody can make out of it.
Well, speaking of stepping back, then I want to step back and I want to get to know you a little bit better, as this figure in our local documentary scene. Like, let's go into your documentarian origin story. Can you trace like a moment from your formative years, maybe perhaps your youth? We're talking about the youth today. When you were like, wow, this is documentary is the field in which I want to, build my career. Like, what is your documentarian origin story, Jeff?
Oh, wow. Okay. I was a working photographer. I had worked in the film industry as like in the service capacity as like a set deck guy. And then I had like started to become a photographer and was doing okay with that. But I was finding it from a commercial standpoint, or I wasn't finding it very creative. Yeah, it was just sort of my ideas and expectations of what it could be and what it was actually turning out to be wasn't the same. And at the time, I had started running an artist studio down at Main and Second in Vancouver, called Cardillera, with another artist named Graham Berglund, and we had 14 artists in there, and it was this like great environment. And in the back office, these two guys came along, Jesse Sabbath and Nathan Drio, and they were making films. And I was just really interested in that. And I started hanging out with them, and I, kept knocking on their office door to see what they were up to. And we started to collaborate, all three of us, and we developed Salazar. And Jesse's since gone on to become a producer in narrative films successfully, and Nathan and I kind of carried on. We were doing a lot of commercial work and that sort of thing, and then we were given the chance to do some documentaries for Red Bull, and this was a new experience for us. And I think immediately, like personally, I was like, oh, this is where it's at, because you could combine sort of beautiful image making with storytelling, but then you could also travel, and you could also like meet new and interesting people, and sort of, yeah, it was just like this perfect combination of things. And then there was, the activist side of me that, got to like, that wanted to like make things that hopefully make the world a better place, or at the very least make the people who are involved make their lives a little bit better. So yeah, it was just kind of this perfect thing, and Nathan and I really, took off from there with really focusing on documentaries. We're dabbling in commercial work. It usually had to do with real people and our abilities to kind of, create a warm and trusting environment.
Yeah. So what was your you said your first documentaries were with Red Bull. Like, what were those first stories that you were telling for the screen?
Yeah, well, they were. One was with basically a horse whisperer. It's not really the term that they use, but a horse whisperer is what we use. Horse whisperer named Jonathan Field, who does amazing work with horses. We got to go to Japan to film with like the first professional Muslim sumo wrestler. And then we got to work with this kinetic artist named Theo Janssen from the Netherlands, who does these amazing like wind-powered crawling machines that walk on these beaches. And yeah, these are just like amazing things to be thrown into. And yeah, really at sort of the beginning of I think kind of a golden era for documentary making, because there was a lot to do and a lot of support to make kind of crazy things.
Yeah, and an audience that is hungry too for, I feel like people maybe 20 years ago might not have said that they love documentaries, but now they're like, oh, it's like my main thing that I watch. Like people there is an appetite, right? So what needs to be present then in a story to get you like really excited to tell it on screen?
That's a good question. I think that it's like, there's just so many things that can happen to like pique your interest. I mean, we've traditionally worked with folks who were enacting some sort of change within their communities, but maybe didn't identify as activists or something like that. They were just kind of doing their thing. Yeah. And like in the case of Robert and his family in our first feature, Wizard Mode, yeah, Robert and his family, this is just like a positive portrayal of what it is to embrace, your son's autism, and, and they, lo and behold, they have a world champion pinball player on their hands. And Handsome and Majestic, again, it was like a family, young trans boy out of Prince George, and the family embracing that and finding community and finding acceptance through that. And the change that little film has created is, it's been shown, it's been projected on the Tower of London, and it's, gone to Parliament, and it's like, wow. School districts have watched it and changed policy because of it. Like, it's like, yeah, it's like people who really just, like all the stories and out there, these youth who kind of just know who they are, or I mean, as much as we can know who we are, but they're doing their thing, and what they're doing is creating like really positive change.
Yeah. So do you, as a documentarian, do you consider yourself to be an activist as well?
No, I don't consider. I like to support activists.
Support activists. Okay.
But I'm not. Yeah, I've been really lucky in that I've had friends who were great organizers and activists, and who allowed me to come on and support their projects in some way.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's something that I always try to create as much space for as possible, because I think when I started that kind of work, I thought, I'm going to I come from this industry, we're very professional, and we can bring that into that atmosphere and, help elevate the kind of content that activists are making. And I think the exact opposite is what happened, was that the practices that really good organizers and activists employ when engaging with their communities was what rubbed off on me and started forming my personal documentary practice, and how we approach these, how we approach a person, how we approach a community, and how we tell stories authentically, and how we do that with, like you said, how we do that sort of properly, so that everybody is, everything is consensual, and everything is, everyone is involved creatively speaking, not just sharing their stories, but also being creatively involved in what comes out of it.
Right. And it's not a combative way, and it's not an exploitative kind of scenario as well.
Yeah.
I'm kind of obsessed with creative partnerships, and especially creative partnerships that are developed over, many years and many projects. So let's talk about your working relationship with Nathan then. Like, how are you different? How are you the same? How do you either like balance each other out, or I don't even know. Like, you tell me about the nature of this working relationship.
Yeah, I mean, it's been a really, really rewarding experience, and it's a lightning strike. It's our whole partnership is like kind of a spit and a handshake, if you want to put it that way. It's Nathan and I are very different. We grew up very differently. And, I grew up in my father was a police officer, and Nathan grew up in rural Tennessee. His family were hippies, back to the land hippies. Yeah, totally. So we have these very different experiences. And I think that's part of where we're successful is that, we're just very different people, but when we combine it, like I said, kind of creates this very comforting atmosphere, I think, for people, because Nathan's very personable and talkative, and I'm very kind of reserved and quiet. Those people can pick and choose whatever they want.
I mean, it's great. It's like choose your own adventure, choose your own director kind of thing. But for people who they're both like filmmakers or they're artists, and they want to enter into a creative relationship, what do you think are some things that they should be asking themselves or asking each other, as they are venturing forth into that?
Oh, geez, I don't know if I'm in any place to give advice on this. But...
Well, I mean, you've been working together for many years, right? So
yeah, totally. Partly by function and partly by dysfunction, for sure.
Like any
yeah. I mean, when Nathan and I met each other, I mean, it was 15 years ago, so we were completely different people. So we've over the years become like family, and for better or for worse. But I think, it's a constant negotiation. Because as time goes on, you don't necessarily want to explore the same things. So how do we find ways to explore these different things that are happening to you in life? And you want to as an artist, you want to kind of explore these things that are happening in life and in your work. So you try to embrace that as much as possible. Try to embrace, what the other person is going through, what they're exploring, but also trying to, explore what you want to. It's not easy. It's difficult. But I find it very rewarding. I like creating things with a lot of input and consensus. I'm kind of personally one of those people sometimes that knows what they don't want, but doesn't know what they want sometimes. And I think I try to take that stance a lot with documentary, like a back stance. I'm not on my toes. I'm sort of a little bit back to see what happens.
Mm-hmm.
And then, offer guidance or requests as they come up. But what other advice or things can I say about that creativity?
I think it's a great answer you've given, for sure. I mean, one of the things that we are seeing through TELUS Originals, DocTalks, and even just existing in this province, and honestly in Canada as well, is that the documentary scene in Canada, and specifically in Western Canada, is fire. It's like a level of quality and creativity and fearlessness, and honestly, that is unmatched in other parts of the world for sure. How would you describe our regional, our national documentary scene, and why is it what do you think is like that secret ingredient, that what's in the secret sauce, that other areas, other jurisdictions, just they don't have, that's holding their documentaries back?
Yeah, I mean, well, TELUS is one of those reasons for sure. The TELUS Originals program and the Story F program has been extraordinary, I think, in giving people access to like really start exploring.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, Vancouver is world renowned for their, their film service industry. We have, we shoot a lot of shows here and a lot of big movies, and our crews are like world renowned as being, some of the best. And that gives us access to equipment and people who know what they're doing, who have had a chance to kind of, like I myself started in the film industry, and Nathan did too as a lamp op. I was in set decorating and various other areas of the film industry. So you gain knowledge, you know how to do things, and that helps contribute. We have an amazing community of cinematographers out here. I think it's just like unparalleled. Yeah, that's also really important, because when a doc looks good, it really helps, it really does help. It also allows for there to be a little bit more creativity. It's not just verite, follow, or profile docs. It can be quite creative and interesting. Right. What other things contribute to it? I mean,
that's so interesting. I haven't heard that connection identified before, between, the human and physical infrastructure, technology, cameras and things, of the service part of the industry, and its connection to the documentary side. I guess I kind of, in my mind, like, even though I know people who like are involved with both, I guess I just assume they move in different spheres, and they occupy different space. But like, yeah, I guess you're absolutely right that there is this connection, between one and the other.
Yeah, like the second AC who works on a big TV show on the weekend is shooting their own documentary or shooting their own project, and as a way of like keeping progressing their career, and yeah, I think it definitely has an effect on our access to that kind of like new equipment, new technology, this sort of thing. So yeah, it's not the most important thing, but it is, I don't want to dissuade, because especially in this era, you can shoot something on your iPhone very easily. And, like Alexa, in the case there, when she's doing her digital voices project, I mean, they're working, it was really fun because we got to see them set up their own set. And they're working with smaller cameras and, smaller lights and all these sorts of things, but they're still like creating something that's great. And so by no means is it inhibiting them, but I think it does contribute and help as you create bigger and bigger projects.
We will return to Out There in a minute, because I do have I have some other questions about Out There, but staying in this general documentary sphere for one more moment, like, are there any trends that you are seeing in the documentary space, be it the kinds of stories that are being told, the ways that stories are told, that you are seeing that excite you and that you're excited to use yourself in the future?
It's just a really exciting time, I think, for communities to be able to tell their own stories. Mm-hmm. And the access to like things like equipment and being able to get your work in front of audiences is, obviously never been better. It's also harder than it's ever been in some ways, because there is just that much more out there. So yeah,
out there.
I didn't try and do that. I'm so sorry. That part too.
No way. We leave that in. Out there, watch out there. It's all explicit and subliminal. Yeah. I hear that. Yeah. were there any of the people that you profiled, in out there that you're like, wow, I can't wait to, see either what projects that they're making? Like, could you see any of them, of the youth, the young people, that you featured in this series, actually like embrace documentary filmmaking and actually the camera and tell their own stories? Like, if so, who among them do you think?
Yeah. Oops. Okay. Yeah. I mean, Alexa is continuing. She's going to be doing more digital voices soon.
Fantastic.
I had the opportunity to visit with her a few weeks ago while she was in town for the GEM Film Festival, which Lex took part in. Yeah. So we're really excited by the things that she's cooking up with digital voices, but also like her public speaking stuff continues. Yeah. So very excited about that. Nell obviously is doing her thing, and she's on tour, and the film has followed her to a few music festivals as well, which has been really
okay.
And who else? I mean, Renee's got his own podcast now. I don't know. It's funny. But he's, Grace is just got accepted to a big university, and I can't remember which one it is right now. So she's away to the races.
Yeah.
Yeah. And Miriam is, of course, in Stanford, which is like incredible and daunting.
I was so impressed by Miriam too, because I think when we first see her, she's talking about like quantum tunneling, and I'm like, she's so much smarter than I could ever hope to be. And I'm glad that she exists and she's out there doing her thing. Were you present for each time that, the subject of the film got to watch, the film for the first time? Like, tell me about what those experiences were like, and, what kind of feedback you received from these kids. I don't know why it feels condescending or patronized to call them kids. They're so remarkable, but yes, they are the youth.
Yes.
The kids.
Yeah, I mean, the cutest story we have is like when we would put the films up on Vimeo. We couldn't be there with them when they were watching them for the first time. That's some of the filmmakers got on like a Zoom call or something with them to watch it with them the first time, which was really cute. But we had, we put them up on Vimeo, and we'd send them to them as like a private link, just to say like, okay, this is what it's looking like now. We'd like to get your feedback, how you're feeling about it. Is there's anything that you feel like is untrue or that you'd like to change? And we started to see the view count. Like, we get these notifications when the film was viewed, and it would just, I Contain Multitudes with Grace Lee just kept like popping up again and again and again. And we realized that her mom was just watching it over and over and over again. And it was so cute. And apparently she's just like tearing up every time. So really got it.
Oh, that is the best feedback, you could possibly get. That's definitely my parenting style as well. Yeah.
And one thing to have, like, to have of your child, like, you have these pictures and memories and videos and stuff, but then you have like this proper documentary that really kind of explores where they're at that time. It's, I think, a pretty cool thing to have.
Yeah. Well, could I propose an idea that, like, maybe in 5 years, 10 years, you with the same filmmakers, some follow-ups? Because I would not be surprised, to see like all the even you're talking about the incredible places they've gone since these films were, they were originally shot. Like, I can only imagine, the life experiences that these young people will have, in the next 5 years or so.
Yeah.
We on
the moon.
Yeah, I could see Miriam possibly, in space, I don't know what quantum physicists or science. I mean, I don't know. It's not my realm of expertise, but I would not be surprised if she ended up on the International Space Station or something. Yeah. So we're coming to the end of our time together today, Jeff. I guess let's end with out there. How would you like audiences to feel as the end credits are rolling on out there? They've sat down and they've watched all 5 episodes, what kind of conversations, would you like to inspire with this series?
Yeah, I mean, again, this comes down to like our hope for it is really that it reaches youth in small towns and gets in sort of educational settings, which we've had already some success at with different school teachers bringing it into their curriculum and holding discussions afterwards about what the film is and how it was created. So there's sort of like 2 areas where we hope that it will spark conversation, which is like areas around how to tell these stories really properly and authentically and with great consideration, and then also like for youth to be able to like look at the subjects themselves and see themselves in it and create nice things that make their communities better.
Create nice things. Fantastic. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, this was absolutely wonderful. Okay, and thank you for listening to the TELUS Originals Doc Talks and to our guest, Jeff Lee Petry. Watch TELUS Originals documentaries at TELUS Optik TV Channel 8 and watch.telusoriginals.com and follow us at TELUS Originals on Instagram. Doc Talks are a production of TELUS Originals. This episode was produced by Sharon Bradley with technical support by Matt Waterworth. Kent Soy is the production executive for TELUS Originals Doc Talks. Doc Talks are produced on the traditional and unceded territory of the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh Nations.